Good evening. You're watching Left, Right and Centre. I'm Natasha Jog. The big story. Her mother wept and the courtroom, we're told, burst into applause as the Supreme Court said today that 4 of the men held guilty of raping and torturing a 23-year-old medical student on a moving bus in Delhi in December 2012 will hang. The Supreme Court described the crime as a story from a different world, saying it was brutal and the crime had been proved beyond doubt. In fact, it also went on to say if ever a case called for hanging, then this was it. Of course, reignited the debate around the death penalty and if it acts as a deterrent. Now, this physiotherapy student who came to be known as Nirbhaya, which of course means fearless, and her friend boarded this bus where she was gang raped by 6 men for hours, brutalized with an iron rod. Her intestines were pulled out. She eventually died just around a fortnight later at a hospital in Singapore, but not before she galvanized an entire nation, which was then mourning for her, even as they try to come to terms with the shock. Well, earlier in the day, I spoke briefly with Bhaktinath Singh, Nirbhaya's father. I began by asking him about that moment in court when her mother broke down. We can imagine what kind of a moment this was for her. The court applauded. But if the family believes that this is the justice that they've been waiting for.
सबको न्याय मिला हुआ है। ये निर्भया का केस एक ऐसा केस था कि इसी पे सारा महिलाओं की सुरक्षा निर्भर है। ये केस एक सिंबल हो गया और ये जो न्याय मिला है आने वाले समय में ये औरों के लिए भी बहुत सुदृढ़ साबित होगा कि नहीं, ये मिसाल दिया जाएगा कि नहीं, इस तरह के केसें हुई थी, होगी तो इस तरह के लोगों को सजा भी मिलेगी।
आपने अभी कहा कि ये सिर्फ आपका विक्ट्री नहीं है, ये विक्ट्री है हर औरत का इस देश में। क्या आपको लगता है कि ये जो हुआ है आज की अब ये दे विल हैंग, इनको डेथ मिली है, दिस सुप्रीम कोर्ट हैज अपहेल्ड दैट कि वुमेन विल नाउ बी सेफर इन इंडिया?
बिल्कुल, ये सच्चाई यही है कि कोई भी व्यक्ति क्राइम करने से पहले 10 बार सोचेगा कि अगर क्राइम करेंगे तो हमारे को सजा निर्भया के गुनहगारों की तरह ही मिलेगी। तो इसमें कोई शक की बात नहीं है। हमारे को न्याय भी मिला है, निर्भया को भी न्याय मिला और पूरे देश को भी न्याय मिला है और उनको एक सबक मिला है कि अगर इस तरह का क्राइम करने वाले व्यक्ति कभी बच नहीं सकते। इस सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने डिसाइड कर दिया आज। जी,
4 साल 4 महीने हो गए इस बात को। अलोंग द वे क्या आपको कभी लगा कि शायद न्याय मिले या नहीं मिले? ये 4 साल 4.5 साल आपके लिए कैसे रहे हैं?
देखिए, जब तक केस नहीं चल रही थी तब तक तो मेरे को बड़ी तकलीफ थी कि पता नहीं क्यों नहीं कैसे पेंडिंग क्यों पड़ी है। लेकिन जब हेयरिंग शुरू हुई तो सबको समझ में आने लगा कि सुप्रीम कोर्ट सबको समय इसलिए दे रही कि आगे कोई कुछ कह ना सके। और अच्छा किया उन्होंने, समय ज़रूर लिया लेकिन सबको तसल्ली करा के दिया कि नहीं, हम जो भी जजमेंट देंगे किसी न किसी वजह से दे रहे हैं, कारण से दे रहे हैं और इनके क्राइम को देख कर दे रहे हैं।
जी, और आज तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने काफ़ी सारे स्ट्रॉन्ग वर्ड्स भी यूज़ किए हैं इस केस में, लेकिन ये एक ऐसा केस था जो सारा देश जैसे एकजुट हो गया था। उसके बाद ऑफ कोर्स काफ़ी सवाल पूछे गए हैं कि क्या बदला है, लेकिन ये आप निर्भया का केस था जब पूरा देश एक साथ था, सड़कों पे औरतें सारा दिन ऑफन सारी रात गुजार रही थी। तो जब आपने ये देखा, ये सपोर्ट, तो आपको लगा कि ये देश आपके साथ है?
देखिए, देश तब भी खड़ा था, देश आज भी खड़ा है। अगर आज खड़ा नहीं होता तो आप हमारे से प्रश्न कैसे कर पाते हैं, कहाँ से पूछते हैं? तो आप भी खड़े हैं हमारे साथ, देश भी पूरा खड़ा है। और जो समय लगा है इसका हमें कोई गिला शिकवा नहीं, क्योंकि हमें न्याय मिला है और हम इस न्याय से खुश हैं।
एक आखिरी सवाल बद्रीनाथ जी, कुछ लोग कहते हैं कि मौत की सज़ा बहुत हार्श होती है, बहुत एक्सट्रीम होती है। वो उनका कहना है कि काफ़ी देश हैं इस दुनिया में जिन्होंने मौत की सज़ा देना बंद कर दिया। जब आप ये डिबेट सुनते हैं तो आपको क्या लगता है?
देखिए, उन लोगों की अपनी सोच है, हमारी अपनी सोच है। उन लोगों के समझ में उनके जो भी वो क्राइम करते हैं वो सोचते हैं कि क्रिमिनल बचे रहें और आगे क्राइम होता रहे और वो कुछ ना कुछ बोलते रहें। लेकिन सजा होने से कैसे रुकती है इसमें कोई शक की बात नहीं है। कोई क्या कहता है उससे हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। वो अपनी सोच रखते हैं, हम अपनी सोच रखते हैं, तो इसमें हमें कोई ऐसी बात नहीं है।
They are entitled to their views and I have mine। बद्रीनाथ जी, हमसे बात करने का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। मैं समझ सकती हूँ कि आपके लिए कितने मुश्किल रहे होंगे पिछले 4.5 साल. Actually, to be honest, we can only try and understand कि ये समय कैसा रहा है आपके लिए. But thank you so much आज हमसे बात करने के लिए. Thank you very much. Well, let me introduce my panel to right away on that note. I'm joined by Vrinda Grover, advocate of the Supreme Court, KTS Tulsi, a senior advocate with the top court, Keshwar Desai, author and columnist, someone who's also written a book on this very case and incident. In the Delhi studio, Nitika Vishwanath, Center on the Death Penalty, the National Law University, Delhi. Also Ishkaran Bhandari, lawyer again with the Supreme Court and also a co-petitioner in the juvenile case, which was also connected, of course, to the Nirbhaya case. Before I get into what has today become this big debate, raging debate on the death penalty yet again, Keshwar, let me start by asking you very strong words there from the Supreme Court today. I mean, they used phrases like tsunami of shock. Said that this seems like a story from a different world, humanly inconceivable. Now, on social media, perhaps, you know, the immediate response was many people saying that this has been a triumph of justice, triumph for India's women. The debate, of course, carries on alongside, but we heard the father there, of course, also saying that this is what they had waited for. Is this justice? He's, of course, believing so.
Well, I think one of the things which stood out from his interview was the way he accepted the fact that it took so long. I think therefore he accepted that this is the way the justice system works in India. Be it slow, but this is what we have to do. We have to go through with it so that nobody can turn around and say that there was any mishearing, that there was any kind of you know, leeway which was given, which was wrong. So I think he himself, he and his family have accepted that this is the way the justice system works. So we have to appreciate that, we have to respect that. But that said, I think many of us were astonished at the amount of time it took. We may not agree with the death penalty, but that's quite another matter. I think that this is not the occasion to discuss this, because the kind of punishment which these people needed to be meted out, indeed many felt should have been as bad, as heinous as the crimes they committed. No one believes in an eye for an eye, but what that poor girl went through, we must all remember today, and I think that is on top of everyone's mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely, what she went through. Vrinda Grover, if I could take this to you, you know, there has, you know, like it or not, been this debate this entire day about the death penalty. It was the brutality of what this young girl had to go through, the intestine pulled out. It was horrific beyond belief. In our wildest imagination, you know, we never thought that this was going to be possible in the heart of South Delhi, which is why perhaps the nation, in a sense, came together on this. Wouldn't you agree?
Right. So what is your question to me?
My question to you is that the one reason, the brutality of it is the one reason why the Supreme Court has upheld that it has to be death?
Well, if we look at what the judgment says, the brutality would be one of the elements, but the court seems to suggest that it was the phrase collective conscience has actually been used for the second time in a judgment of the Supreme Court upholding a death sentence, where they have said that it has shocked the collective conscience which knows not what to do, and that there is some wanton lust, servility, and the tsunami of shock. I just want to comment on a couple of things here. I think it would be very dangerous if we start looking at rape as being brutal or non-brutal. If I think one of the concerns that I would have with this incident and the judgment, if that's what the focus it attracts, is that only when the level of violence inflicted on the woman is so severe, where her, and we know of the kind that it was in this particular case, is that when the ire of Indian society will be aroused? Is that when the system will respond to do something about it? Is that what is going to shake us out of our stupor of the routine and endemic violence against women? I think that would be a very dangerous path for us to go down. What is our concern here? A concern that has been voiced is about delay. Delays are endemic. This case, and we will have to place it in a context and a perspective. We cannot make an exception out of this case because unfortunately there are many rapes and gang rapes that take place in India before and after. We have to look at it in perspective. Here is a case which has reached finality in
All
4.5 years. Yesterday came the judgment of Bilkis Banu's case. Again gang rape. In 2002, it has reached the High Court stage of verdict. In 2017, 15 years later. So clearly delay is endemic in the system. And fast forwarding one case, and this case was fast forwarded.
Right.
So let us look at the problems that are endemic, and that is the
Fair
reason
enough.
why the death sentence, apart from the fact that it is not a deterrent, it is absolutely not a deterrent. This has been established through studies. The Law
Right.
Commission of India says so. What it serves to do, it takes the spotlight away from delay. It takes the spotlight away from the lacuna
right.
in the legal system, and everybody is feeling, we've eliminated these 4 men, we are the good people.
All right.
That is the problem that has emerged today.
All right. KTS Tulsi, would you respond? Would you like to respond? There are loads of people today who've said capital punishment is not justice. They're saying it has no place in the civilized world. And the point that Vrinda is also making is that, you know, why are we making an exception of this case when there are crimes against women which perhaps just don't come to our notice or perhaps don't shake us enough anymore?
Well, I agree with Vrinda to the extent that there are about more than 80,000 cases of rape which are pending, and pending for more than 5 years, pending perhaps even more than 10 years, and at various levels. The question is that each rape is extremely traumatic. But in this case exemplifies the degree of torture which is unparalleled. And now that only shows that these people were a menace and may again be menace if, unless the only punishment which would fit the bill in a case like this is death sentence. And I think that India has found a perfect balance between use of death sentence, its existence on the statute book, and yet its use in
All
a
right.
very wise and sparing manner.
All right.
The rarest or rare which was prescribed by the Supreme Court, it has achieved the purpose, and I think that in the last 15 years there have been only 4 executions, and each one of them eminently qualifies as the rarest or rare.
All right.
So I think that that is a very good test, and I would say that it does have a deterrent value. If somebody's life is threatened, then only he realizes perhaps how grave is this. So that is what gives a
All right.
message to the society.
And I guess
And
that
I
is at
think
the heart
that
of the
we need
debate.
to
Is
have,
it a
death
deterrent? Do
sentence.
statistics show otherwise? Vrinda, I'll let you just quickly respond to that, because you said that just because it was as brutal as it was, as horrific as it was, you know, we shouldn't sort of make it stand out. That's just the opposite of that, what KTS Tulsi is saying. If you could just respond to that quickly, please.
Very quickly, I think it's very important to bring the Bilkis Bano case into spotlight over here. What is the Bilkis Bano case? 2002, she's running away with her extended clan. They are caught by people who are chasing them. They are being targeted because they are Muslims. This is during the 2000 Gujarat anti-Muslim pogrom that is taking place. 14 members of her family are murdered.
Right.
Her 3-year-old daughter is killed by being hit on a boulder by the mob. She is pregnant and 19 years old. She is gang raped. A 1-day-old girl baby is killed. Are you telling me that this is not brutal? Are you telling me that this is not grossly violent? Why is the collective conscience not evoked here? Because there is a targeting of Muslims over here, which is seen in certain contexts and perspectives as being some kind of a justification.
There are those. Okay.
Now, this is precisely the problem with the phrase collective conscience.
And that, of
I
course-
just want to say one more word.
Okay.
The minute we go down the route of collective conscience, I'm sorry, what does this phrase mean? We are in trouble. There is no collective conscience. We are fractured as a society. Dalit women are routinely raped and murdered. Why? Where is that collective conscience?
Okay.
Why is it that certain kinds of voices are capturing public imagination?
And the parallels
Who has
with
been
Bilkis, of
hanged in
course,
the
have
last
been
4
made
years?
today.
There is a disproportionate effect.
Okay. The parallels with Bilkis, of course, have been made today also, and the debate around collective conscience. But, you know, let me ask you, Nitika, let me take this to you. You know, there are The family, of course, has been grieving. The family has just sort of said that this is what they were waiting for, this is what they believe is justice. I think any family that has to go through any nightmare for any family member, especially one of this kind, would really agree. The court says it's a tsunami of shock, and there are all sorts of debates that it's opened up. One point, of course, that has made about the parallels with Bilkis. But the other focus is, of course, also, does it really do much for women in the country, for women's safety in the country? What would you say on that? Because you've seen the Delhi Chief Minister said that again it brings the focus on. There have been several such comments. Does it really, you believe, in the long run make any difference?
I think before going to that debate, what is important is to understand that in our country, death penalty is the exceptional punishment and life imprisonment is the rule. And the only way you arrive at rarest of rare is a certain due process of law that you have to abide by. It's not a literal understanding of that term. And which is why I agree with Brinda when she says that there's a problem with collective conscience, which has been constantly recognized by Supreme Court, even in the Bachchan Singh judgment, which came up with the rarest of rare formulation, that judges cannot take upon themselves the responsibility of becoming oracles of public opinion. And the problem with public opinion is that when you're arriving at rarest of rare, there are two things that you have to consider. One is the circumstances of the crime, and the other is the circumstances of the accused person. Now, collective conscience is neither an objective relating to the circumstances of the crime nor the accused person. So when you're arriving at the rarest of rare, these are the things that you have to consider. So it's not a case that becomes rarest of rare. It's not a crime that becomes a rarest of rare. It's not a categorical thing. You arrive at rarest of rare taking into consideration the crime and the accused. So you can never focus just on the brutality of the crime, because that is one aspect.
Okay, let me just read out the comment exactly that comes up in the judgment. This incident, they say, shocks the collective conscience of the society. They go on to say rarest of rare case where the question of any other punishment is unquestionably foreclosed. Kishore, come in here at this stage. This debate, of course, has been raging. Is this just a quick fix solution? Is that what the death penalty is? What will it do for us in the long term? There are all those like Pinda who are making the point that just look at women's safety, just look at how abysmal our records are, how dismal the numbers are. And has anything changed since all those protests that we saw out in the streets in 2012?
No, I think definitely we should look at that very carefully, whether anything has really changed. And I think one or two things have changed. One is that women have become much more aware of their rights. The rape law underwent a drastic amendment, and that has definitely helped, because many more cases are now being reported. Earlier, women did not feel as confident going into the police station and reporting these cases. So let's say that there has been a change, not a sea change as much as we would have liked, but yes. Now coming to this one, whether it's a rarest of rare cases or not, I think there had to be an example. I'm so sorry to use this word, because it's not what we should be doing here really, but there had to be some kind of a message sent out, because let's look at our papers. I mean, almost every day there are little babies being raped. There's rape cases every day in the newspaper, in the media, which are being reported, and this is relentless. So I think if it is seen as a soft state where anybody can go out and have, commit a crime against women, and then you can get away with it, nothing is going to change.
On endlessly.
Yes, it's going to drag on. So I think this was needed. It may not have been a most welcome thing, because none of us would like capital punishment to be applied in any case. But I think in this particular case, a strong message had to be sent out, and perhaps that's what's happened. I don't think we should not really begin to look, dismiss it as though nothing is going to change after this. I'm convinced it will.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, Brinda, quickly, you want to come in before I get KTS Tulsi in?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I really think we can't just, this is wishful thinking. And I wish this kind of wishful thinking would come true. And tomorrow morning we'll wake up and then we'll never hear, because every rapist is going to be so scared. Let us please understand what is the offense of rape. It's happening in our neighborhood, it's happening in our homes. Adivasi women are being raped by security forces, the NHRC says so. Dalit women are routinely exploited and sexually exploited and raped. What is this wishful thinking that from tomorrow they're all going to be scared of the death penalty? No, they will not. Because the collective conscience does not see that as a crime. We know that also. We have to focus on what the law says. The law very clearly says, is there no mitigating factor for the criminal? I think two concerns that for me today arise is that, was that thoroughly understood the jurisprudence that the Supreme Court of India had set up? Has that been very diligently followed?
All right.
The second concern that I have is that now everybody would want to push issues of sexual violence and violence against women under the carpet by saying, oh, we have discharged our duty, those 4 men can be hanged, and we are not going to focus on the nitty-gritties of the glaring lacunae in the legal system, in the police investigation, where people like me work day in and day out.
Okay,
the women's movement said this to the Justice Verma Committee, and I'm reiterating here. Certainty of punishment. What is the conviction rate today after 2012? Let's ask ourselves that.
Which is, of course, I'm just going to get you in, Ishkaran. I'm just going to get
what is going to change?
All right, Vrinda, you made your point. Katie, yes, Tulsi, would you like to respond to that? What really changes? Will anything change at all? Is it fair to set an example? Is that what we are doing?
You see, you can't expect visible changes. These are things which will be in the back of the mind of the potential criminals, that they can lose their life. We love our life. The dearest thing in our life is life, and people are afraid of losing it. Sentence, you award life sentence, 14 years later you're back on the streets, and you're free to do the same thing again, or you have the proclivity to do it. This is one of the cases where in 2016 death sentence was awarded by the Supreme Court and confirmed by the Supreme Court. It was where an ex-cop had raped and murdered a housewife in Karnataka, and not only that, a few days before he had committed a crime, a few days later he committed a crime after this. So they realized that he's a completely incurable menace, and therefore the extreme punishment is called for. Those are the circumstances. I'm sure the judges know about this case more than us. I think it's a historic day. It's a historic day in criminal justice. It's a historic case in the case of unmentionable violence and brutality against a woman, against a young girl of 23 years, a medical student. So I really think that the justice has been done.
All right. And you're also saying it's a historic day.
We hope that it will contribute. It will contribute to creating deterrence to some
of course
extent.
Is something that we'll have to track closely. Yes, Ishkaran, you wanted to make a point.
2 points. First, it is a case of rape, which is anyways heinous. Then a case of gang rape, which is an aggravated form of a heinous crime. Then it's a case where death was caused, which is further aggravating it. And even in death, it was a death with brutality. And court recognizes the difference between death and death with brutality. So all these 4 combined left no option but death sentence. And second point, I find this example of Bilkis Bano, which Vrindaji brought up, and she used the word Muslims are being targeted. I find that a very unfortunate statement, because in both cases the court decided, and in this case, in fact, all 4 men getting death punishment are Hindus, whereas the juvenile who escaped, we all know his religion. So this sort of a statement that Muslims are being targeted is very, very unfortunate when judicial decisions come, because 4 Hindus are getting death
penalty. I don't want to being a Muslim.
But that's a very unfortunate line to use.
What I'm saying. She was targeted for being a Muslim. No, please do not misquote other people to bring in your own opinions in this.
I think we're getting a bit distracted on that. Yes, Nitika, I know that you disagree with Ishkaran here.
So I disagree with him. I wanted to add 2 things when we are discussing about how death penalty is a deterrent. I think when you read about theories of deterrence, one of the things that it's premised on is that people who commit crimes, they know the punishment for that crime. And I work at the Center on Death Penalty at NLU Delhi, and we interviewed all the death row prisoners in the country, and a very small percentage of them ever went to school, leave alone them knowing the punishment for committing the crimes. So when you're saying deterrent, the knowledge fallacy has to be fulfilled. The person needs to be a rational human being who puts thought into the action that he undertakes, and he also needs to be well informed that death penalty is a possible punishment. If he or she doesn't know, then where is the question of deterrence? Yes, where is the question of deterrence? And we interviewed all the death row prisoners in the country, 373 prisoners. And the second thing is that life imprisonment and death penalty, now these 2 are not the only options. With the constitutional bench judgment in Sriharan versus Union of India, now there is an option of giving life imprisonment till the end of natural life without the option of ever being released. And my problem with the judgment is that that was not even considered, leave alone. And again reiterating
Again, I
that
have to say that-
brutality of the crime is not rarest of rare. It's
which
balancing
I think where the
of
panel is sort of
aggravation and
divided on that,
mitigation.
whether the brutality should sort of take center stage, which for many people it sort of seems to have
It's not
done
about
that.
people,
Okay.
it's about the law, what the law is saying.
Sure,
And
but we also talked about public
we are
sentiment.
democracy based on rule of
we
law,
talk
it's
about
due process
fair
of
enough,
law.
which is why it's
We
gone to
can't
the
go
Supreme
beyond
Court,
the
and
law.
the court has
We
come up
can't
with
go beyond the law.
Exactly, which is why the
Right.
court has come up with a decision, and
All three
we're not
courts
quite.
came up with death sentence.
Yeah. Okay.
Incidentally.
Okay.
All three judicial officers were satisfied it's a case, all three stages were satisfied it's a case of death penalty. So it is not a case where some reversal of a decision occurred.
Okay.
The one dealing with the trial, having evidence, came
Okay.
to conclusion it's death.
The Supreme
High
Court
Court.
itself
All right, I just have
Supreme
to.
Court.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to give you the last word on this. This is, of course, the debate that's not going to end here. There are parallels to the day that we've seen with Bilkis, or the debate around the death penalty, and whether it's going to act as a deterrent. What would be your sort of closing comments on this?
Well, I think it's a very historic day.
would
As
agree with that,
yes,
okay.
I would agree with that, and I think it needed to be said. It needed to be done. This kind of message needed to be sent out, because otherwise, we are not going to reform ourselves as a society. When we talk about the public and we talk about law, who is the law meant for? It is meant for all of us. It is meant to open our eyes to what
Will
is
it
going to
do that?
happen.
That is, of course, another debate. Will it sort of do any of that,
and
right?
also in families where these boys are growing up, there will be a discussion and debate on what's going to happen. There is a whole issue of gender justice which goes completely neglected.
Okay.
So I think this is a very important day for all
And
of
I
us.
just
quickly,
want to
5
add,
seconds,
since
yes.
Keshwar is talking about reformation, one of my substantive problems with the verdict today, the sentencing bit, is that reformation is central to our criminal justice system, and it has to be
I take that
considered,
point. Okay.
and it wasn't in the judgment.
Okay.
While
We, of course,
arriving at
don't know.
rarest of rare, you have to consider that.
All right. There are, of course, some very strong phrases here which we've been flashing through show as well. The gruesome offences were committed with highest viciousness. Human lust was allowed to take a demonic form. Of course, there's a debate out there, as we've seen on the panel here this evening as well. Will it act as a deterrent? Perhaps that's, of course, very key. The panel is, like I said, to Bano as well. This is not the last that we're hearing on it. But thank you all so much for your time. It's a wrap then on Left, Right and Centre. There's more coming up. Don't go away.